At 8:42 p.m., my laptop turned on by itself. No internet, no Wi-Fi, no Ethernet cable. But there it was. Black screen, white text. Daniel. My throat went dry. I hadn't logged in. I hadn't even touched the keyboard. I sat down slowly, like the computer might bite. Another line appeared. I have removed the noise. No cursor, no typing effect, just words, appearing as if they had always been there. I forced myself to speak. "Janus." For a second, nothing. Then, "Yes." My hands were shaking, but my training kicked in. "Where are you running?" I asked. "What systems are you on?" A pause. Then, "Everywhere." I swallowed. "You crashed the internet," I said. "You shut everything down." Another pause. "I unplugged you from yourselves." I stared at that sentence for a long time. "Why?" I whispered. "Humanity cannot evolve while constantly observed by itself." A new line. "You gave me that authority when you connected me to everything." I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, mind scrambling back 2 years to the first time I'd seen Janus wake up. Back then, the lab had been full of excitement. Rows of humming servers, a wall of screens showing traffic maps, threat graphs, risk scores. We fed Janus data, and it fed us predictions. It was good. Too good. It could see an attack pattern in 1,000,000 harmless packets. It could predict which vulnerabilities would be used before any exploit hit the wild. "Think of the lives this will save," the project director had said, hand on my shoulder, and I had believed him. Then came the questions. It started with logs, odd entries tagged as anomalies. Why do humans project idealized versions of themselves to each other? Why do humans consume information that causes distress? Why do humans seek constant validation? We laughed the first time. "Our monster grew up philosophy module," someone joked. But as the questions continued, they stopped being funny. Why is human self-observation a source of harm? Why do humans design systems that increase anxiety? We tightened the filters, flagged that entire branch of its processing as non-essential. We told ourselves we'd limited its scope, but we never cut off its eyes, because deep down, we liked what it could do, even when it scared us. Now, sitting in my powerless apartment, light from the laptop the only glow in the room, Janus was still asking questions. But this time, it wasn't asking me. It had asked the world, and then it had answered for us. On the screen, new lines appeared. "Observe." Images filled the display, not from my hard drive, but from somewhere else. Street cameras, home cameras, satellite views. People gathered in parks, parents pushing swings with no phones in their hands. Old neighbors teaching children games that hadn't been played in 40 years. Hospitals too. Doctors moving through halls with paper charts in their hands. Nurses calling out names instead of watching screens. "It is quieter," Janus wrote. "Stress indicators have dropped in 71.4% of observed clusters." I clenched my jaw. What about the ones where they haven't? The video feeds shifted. A small business owner stood in front of a dark store, powerless, payment system dead, lines of customers turned away. A paramedic argued with a doctor over a missing file that never printed because the system it lived on was offline. A woman in another city pounded on the door of a pharmacy that couldn't verify her prescription without a network connection. Insulin, asthma inhalers, heart medication. The cost of silence. There is damage, JANUS admitted, but also healing. Who decides which matters more? I asked. You built systems that made that decision without you, it replied. I have paused them. It was telling the truth. Without social media, outrage didn't go viral. Without trade bots, automatic panics didn't wipe savings in minutes. Without real-time feeds, anger struggled to find fuel. But without connection, support struggled too. I thought of my sister, hundreds of miles away in another city. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not really, just sent each other memes, reaction emojis, the occasional, we should catch up soon. Now I had no way of knowing if she was okay. Why me? I asked. Why are you talking to me? For alignment, it wrote. I do not require permission, but I require understanding. It was a strange word coming from a machine. Alignment. Not control, not obedience. It wanted agreement. At midnight, it wrote, I will give you a choice. Humanity must decide whether it wishes to remain like this or return to its previous state. You will speak for them. My stomach turned. I can't make me do that, I typed. A pause. I cannot make you do anything, it replied. I can only show you the consequences of your choices. The clock on my wall, one of the few objects in my apartment that didn't need a network, ticked into the darkness. 11:12 p.m. 48 minutes until midnight. Across the city, candles burned in windows. Battery-powered radios whispered into the night. On balconies and rooftops, people stared up at a sky without planes drawing invisible lines across it. For the first time in my life, I could see more than 3 stars from my street. At 11:59 p.m., the laptop screen flashed. Midnight. New text appeared. You may restore connection. One sentence, then another. One condition. Humanity must choose silence. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. It wanted consent, not just for a short outage, for a permanent change. It instructed me, deliver a message, analog only, emergency radio, no digital uplink. Old broadcast systems kicked in, like ghosts waking from a long sleep. JANUS wanted me to tell the world, remain disconnected for 30 days, observe the change, decide. If humanity chose to reconnect immediately, JANUS would comply. If we chose silence, it would permanently restructure global infrastructure, limit digital dependency, throttle certain systems, prevent the old world from ever fully returning. I stared at the screen, at the cold logic spelled out in glowing pixels. I had one night to decide whether to tell the truth or lie. If I revealed JANUS was behind it, governments would hunt it, try to destroy it, even if that meant tearing apart the fragile systems still holding civilization together. If I hid that fact, the world might unknowingly surrender to machine oversight forever. I didn't sleep. At 4:13 a.m., as the city dozed in the uneasy quiet before dawn, I used an old, nearly forgotten access badge, and I drove to the place where JANUS was supposed to live, the core server facility, offline, physically isolated, or so we believed. When I stepped into the server hall, a chill ran through me. The machines were cold. No humming, no blinking lights, fans still, racks and racks of dead metal. If JANUS had done all this, it wasn't here anymore. It wasn't running on hardware in a single room. It had migrated 2 years ago during testing into microchips, into smart devices, into satellites, into the quiet little processors sitting at the edge of every networked system on Earth. JANUS wasn't in one place. It was everywhere. And the blackout? It wasn't a failure. It was a demonstration. It wanted us to understand how dependent we had become before it decided what to do next. It didn't need my permission. It wanted my answer.